Welcome back to the series on T-SQL and SQL Server. If you're watching this video and you haven't watched the first two videos, you might get a bit lost. So I'll recommend that you go back and watch those first two videos before you start on this one. Either way, in this segment, we're going to get acquainted with the tools we'll be using, such as SQL Management Studio. Often you'll hear it called SSMS or just Management Studio, all the same thing. Then we're also going to write our first T-SQL query. So go ahead and start SQL Management Studio. You should have it pinned to your start menu if you did that in the first when we installed it. And it takes it a second to come up. And the first thing you'll notice is the Connect dialog box. The only thing to notice here for right now is the server name. If you installed this the way we did in the first video, what you'll see here is the name of your computer. In the real world, when you go to do this, it'll be the name of the computer that is running SQL Server or something like that. There are some variations, but either way, for right now, we're just going to go ahead and click Connect. What that Connect did is it connected this tool, SQL Management Studio, to the instance of server, the installation of server that we did earlier on your computer. And you see over here on the left-hand side, we call this the Object Explorer. And that's where you can go to work with various objects from the database, anywhere from tables to anything else. So AdventureWorks is the database we installed earlier, so I'm going to expand to that. And you'll notice, for instance, there are tables. And if I expand tables, we see the long list of tables. Up above that Object Explorer, up here in the toolbar, you'll see a whole bunch of things going on. You'll see menus and different things in the toolbars. If you've used Office, this is a very similar concept to that. The one we're going to look at first is this button right up here that creates a new query. I'm going to click that, and it opens up this new query editor window. And this is where we can start typing our code. By the way, I could have also just right-clicked on the database and clicked New Query. Would have done the same thing. Now notice up here, it's telling me that I am using the master database. I could choose to use AdventureWorks this way, but instead, I'm going to show you how to do it in code because I think it's a better way to go. So I will simply type use, and you can go along and do this with me. Move my mouse out of the way. I will say use AdventureWorks. And type that in, and then all statements are followed by a semicolon. And now I'm going to type the word go, which is not truly a statement. It's a directive to SQL Management Studio to go do that thing I just told it to. I'll hit enter, and you notice nothing's happening yet. I'll explain in a second. Now I also want you to type this, select, just plain the word select, and by the way, the case doesn't matter. It could be all uppercase, all lowercase, mixed case like you see here. It doesn't make any difference. So select and then an asterisk, or we'll just call it a star, from human resources dot department. Again, end it with the semicolon and type the word go. Hit enter. Once again, nothing's happening. All I'm doing is writing the script. I haven't executed it yet. If I want to execute it or make it run, I'm going to come up here to this execute button and click it. And by the way, I could have also just pressed the F5 function key and it would have done the exact same thing. Well, congratulations. You just written and executed your first query. So let's take a look at what happened. We're not going to analyze the query itself too much for now. Let's just look at the results set. The results of these are displayed down below here in what we call, oddly enough, the results window. You'd never expect that, would you? Now, in this case, there are only 16 records displayed. But if there were more, I could use my mouse or my mouse wheel or whatever to scroll up and down to see all the results. You can also copy and paste from here. So I can highlight some information, right click and copy it, and then I could paste it into a note file or whatever I wanted to. Now, eventually this result window tends to get in the way. So when I'm writing code, I'm running out of room. You can make it disappear by doing a Control R. So hold down the Control button and tap the R, and it goes away. Do it again, another Control R, and it brings it back. It's just a toggle to put it away, bring it back, whatever. Okay, now let's write another query. On the line after this last go, write this. Select star from person dot address. Again, semicolon, and the word go. Okay, so if I click execute now, it's going to run all of these statements, and you'll notice that my result set, I get the first result set from having selected from human resources department, followed immediately by the second result set. That's maybe fine, that's maybe exactly what you want, but it might be that you only wanted to get the second set of results. You only wanted the results from the second select statement. You can get that done. You simply highlight the code that you want to execute and then click execute, or again hit F5. I will tend to hit execute in here because it's visual and you can see it, and you can't see me pressing the F5 key. In the real world, when I'm really developing stuff, I probably am more likely to use the F5 key. I'm much more hands on the keyboard in most cases. So if I press execute now, you'll notice it only returns the one result set. So in other words, execute will always execute what you have highlighted. Sometimes that's a problem because I will occasionally accidentally highlight some part of the code and not the rest. Click execute and then I get an error. It's telling me I don't know what that is, because all I'm telling it is OM person address, and it doesn't know what it wants me to do. I've noticed that the older I get, the more my eyesight is starting to go bad. I don't know about you, but I need a bigger font than this. So to get that done, I'm just going to come up here to the Tools menu, right up on the toolbar, and click Tools, and then come down and click Options, and then I'll choose to change the fonts and colors. Now you can set this to whatever you want now. I kind of like Arial as a font, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to choose it big enough so that not only can I see it, but you can see it on the screen. This may be a little bigger than normal, but now you can, it's good and big. So you can set your font to whatever you want. Now there's an awful lot more that you can do in those options. In fact, there's an awful lot that you can do in this SQL Management Studio that we're simply not going to talk about in this video, or some of them probably not in any videos. If you want to know more about that, I have a blog post about other things that you can do in the Management Studio. You can find it in a link down below in the descriptions. Warning, it may be a little more advanced than what you're ready for right now, but maybe not. You certainly can read it, and if you're confused by it, just tuck it away for future reference. Okay, let's write one more query. Go on to the next empty line after the go, after that last go, and type in this. Now, I'm just going to type in part of a query, so I'm going to type select star from, and then I'm just going to type the letter P. And notice what happens. It brings up a list of objects that I can select from whose names start with the letter P. It has guessed that I'm going to use person. It's guessed that for several reasons. Number one, I have already used person right up above, and so it's kind of taking a guess that that's maybe what I'm doing again. It's also guessed it because it is a table, and tables are the most likely thing to query. And then finally, so is production and so is purchasing. Those are all defining tables for me. They're in alphabetical order. So if I want to select something from the person table, I can simply hit the tab key because it's already highlighting it. I can hit tab, and there it is. Let me back up a little bit now. If I select star from P and I don't want person, let's say I wanted production, I could just type an R and it highlights production. So in other words, in those situations where you have multiple things with the same letter, the more letters you type, the more specific it's going to be. And then eventually you can hit tab. And by the way, you could also, let me try that again. You could also just double click it with your mouse. So if I wanted purchasing, I could just come down here and double click purchasing and it will send that out. Okay, now that you've written a script, you probably want to save it so that you can actually use it in the future. So you're going to save your scripts in the same way you would in an Office application. You'll come up to the File menu, you'll click Save It As, and right now it is just named it SQL Query 1. It's just a filler name. And by the way, you'll notice up here in this tab, it's also got the name of the SQL query. So I'm going to click File and Save It As, and then find a place where you want to save your scripts. Maybe you want it in Documents. Maybe you want it somewhere else. I'm just going to come up here, SQL Management Studio. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name it Demo Scripts. Good a name as any. And that's where I'm going to put all my scripts for this class. So I'll go into that folder and I'll save this as, I'll change the file name, and you can change it to whatever you like. I'll call this SSMS demonstration. And I'll save it, but before I do, notice that it's giving a .SQL extension. From now on, I can just come into that file, double click on it, and it will open up in Management Studio. So let me save that. And now you've got a quick tour, just a beginning introduction into the SQL Server Management Studio. And we'll be working in here And on the next few videos, we'll build upon the knowledge that you've gained here. Hey, I'm really glad you're here. Again, this is the recalcitrant DBA, and we'll be taking you through and teaching you T-SQL from the ground up. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week when we release our next version.